But the more I think about it, the more I started realizing that I was sexually assaulted. I had been to the gynecologist for several years, and I knew that appointment was wrong. I would look at my lawsuit check and think, I could have saved so many other girls, and I could have helped prevent hundreds of other girls from getting abused as well. It felt like I had survivor's guilt, and it just felt like I didn't deserve the money. And so that contributed to the ideas that I just didn't even want the money. I told myself I would never touch that money, not a single penny, because I didn't want anything about my future tied to my past and all the pain that it caused me. But life doesn't always let us heal on our own terms, because today I'm going to be telling you the story of how I felt responsible for the death of my abuser, and how the subsequent mental spiral forced me to finally face my lawsuit money. Here's the story. For years, I just let my lawsuit money collect dust because I was still unsettled by the thought of using it. I stopped telling people altogether about my lawsuit and the money because all I got in response was either unsolicited advice or tone-deaf suggestions. Now, I know everybody was just trying to help. I fully understand that. But I couldn't ever articulate why I was so bothered by the idea of touching the money. I had friends and family tell me how lucky I was to have received a payout from sexual assault, and how I should be grateful for it. And I was grateful for it, but that just made me sink deeper into the guilt that I didn't deserve it. I also think everyone was really frustrated with me for refusing to touch my lawsuit money, because instead I chose to live in poverty. Let me explain. When I first moved to LA back in 2020, I had big dreams and high hopes of making it big in the industry. Here's a little look at that journey. And you know, I am giving myself these next few months to explore what I like, to explore the different avenues of the entertainment industry. And I don't know if it's gonna be acting, if it's gonna be modeling, or more personality-driven type of work, but I think the universe was just telling me, you need to go for it. I have been dabbling, I guess, in the modeling / acting world. So as of this week, I am a signed model. I'm gonna be a model.
Kind of a behind the scenes look of what it's like to be a model on set.
Because I was actually filming for a TV show.
Today is the day I filmed my movie scene.
Kind of marry modeling with a lot of my YouTube and social media presences. Maybe when I become a big famous YouTuber, my full-time occupation is a content creator. If I could host a TV show like that someday in my future, I wouldn't ask the universe for anything ever again.
And maybe, I don't know, my own talk show or something someday.
And I can come on here and say that I've put in the work, I completed my backstory and all of my experience, and today I start my first hosting gig. I'm gonna cry. Hello and welcome to another episode of Lifestyles. This is a real-time live talk show for the modern woman, covering topics from beauty tips, fashion advice, wellness tips, and sustainable living practices.
I don't know, guys, I really feel like I'm following my dreams here. So it was validating knowing that a lot of people believe in me and they think that I am pursuing the right career field.
I'm just really grateful for all the opportunities that have been presented to me.
You're gonna be a star, kid. We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna take you to the moon.
I just think that when you've been so lost for so long, finally realizing what you want to do and making the steps towards doing it is just so fulfilling, and I'm really proud of myself, and I'm really excited for this next chapter. But over time, I just really realized I didn't like modeling and acting. And actually, tangent, the truth is that I was actually terrible at modeling and acting. I remember this one time I was at an acting gig and he was like, all right, give me sad, like give me really sad. And I was like, okay. And he was like, okay. Like, I literally can't access emotions, let alone evoke them. And I also don't like doing things that I'm not immediately good at. So needless to say, I did not like acting, but acting did not like me. Anywho, so yeah, I basically became the cliche of a kid with stars in their eyes trying to make it big in Hollywood. And like so many others that have tried before me, I kind of failed because it's tough out there, especially with social media, acting, modeling. That income is not guaranteed. And even if you are spending 50-hour weeks making content, editing, auditioning, getting small side gigs, it doesn't guarantee financial success. What a concept. And so as a result, I became what the government would classify as below the poverty line, which isn't great. And so I saw that my bills were getting higher than my income, and so I had no shame going and getting a part-time job. I went and I got a job scooping ice cream at Salt and Straw just to help pay the bills.
Again! Again! Again!
God, who closed last night?
All right, my TikTok time is done, so now we gotta open up this store.
But times got tougher. My rent gets raised, and before you know it, I'm living off of discounted food and soggy salad.
In this economy, I need every dollar I can get. This bacon, manager special, $3. This is Penderson Farms. This would be like $7 at Whole Foods. I don't like buying things full price. You guys know me, but I'm gonna pop into a Goodwill because it's Thursday and they have Dollar Thursdays. And you guys should know what a thrifter I am by now. I don't know if I'm a thrifter or if I'm just cheap. And so I went like dumpster diving essentially. I don't really have a great source of income right now and hope that my credit card doesn't get canceled. Again, we can give my wallet a rest and try to save a little bit of money. But it's also time to reflect on why I have such a scarcity mindset. I did my tax return and I made pretty much exactly the same as I did the year before. And that was a very discouraging thing to see that I hadn't made any progress. And then I started getting so discouraged that success would never find me that I actually considered completely abandoning my dreams and starting an entirely new career path. I was having an existential crisis with my career. So I've been, waffling between if I want to keep up with social media or move on to the next venture. And I always said that my next career goal would be becoming a flight attendant. So a few months ago, I had started applying to be a flight attendant, and now I was getting responses and I was getting interviews. And I kind of had this weird panic attack of like, oh shoot, like, am I ready to get rid of my apartment and live the nomad life as a flight attendant? And I'm telling you all this to really underline the fact that I was ready to live in poverty, barely make ends meet, and even give up on all of my life's ambitions in favor of ever touching that lawsuit money. That's how much trauma that amount held for me. But then I ended up taking this life-changing trip to Paris with my sister. So for many, many, many years, I had been talking about wanting to visit Paris, and my sister ended up planning the most beautiful, perfect trip to France. Bonjour and happy new vlog, everyone. I am finally headed on a European vacation and going to Europe for the very first time. If you've been following along, you know that I have been dreaming of going to Paris for a very long time now, and I'm finally headed there with my sister.
Once a year, Donna and I spend a day treating ourselves. What do we treat ourselves to?
Clothes.
Treat yourself.
Fragrances.
Treat yourself.
Massages.
Treat yourself.
Mimosas.
Treat yourself.
Fine leather goods.
Treat yourself.
It's the best day of the year.
The best day of the year!
And even though we were there for less than a week, I immediately deemed Paris my favorite place in the world to travel to. Although, side note, I do have a vlog channel if you wanted to go back and catch up. I have 2 vlogs on the Paris trip. I have one on the subsequent London trip. I have some that show my gradual descent into madness. So those are also fun, but feel free to go check out that channel if you wanted to go catch up. Moving right along, ski. And when I got back from that trip, something completely flipped in me because I got a glimpse of life worth living again. I got remotivated, I got re-energized, I got re-inspired. And for the first time ever, I got this wave of contentment that, hey, maybe it is okay if I use some of the money. And it was foreign, but it was the first time in years that I ever felt any type of peace when it came to my lawsuit settlement. So after my travels abroad, I was in some serious debt. And I said, you know what? I think this is what the lawsuit money is used for. Let me ease some of my burdens and put it towards my credit card bills. So I called up my financial advisor. We scheduled an appointment and I said, hey, I want to take out a little bit of the money. I remember I decided to take out $10,000 to pay off credit card bills and to help cushion my checking account. And my financial planner said, no worries, we'll get that started for you and the money should hit your account in 2 days. And I felt light after hanging up that Zoom call. I felt relief. I felt like a fully charged cell phone battery after being on 1% for many, many months. And I remember thinking like, okay, yeah, I'm back, baby. Like, happiness, I remember you. You're like an old friend that I ghosted because I was so depressed, but that welcomes me back with open arms when I'm ready to reemerge into society. You know, ja feel? And I remember feeling so light that I was basically shaming myself for waiting so long to do anything with the money, because the sense of relief that I just felt like I was levitating in air. Yeah, duh, where else would you levitate? So I felt comfortable and like everything was gonna be okay until it wasn't. So the 2 days later that the money was gonna hit my bank account was actually my mom's birthday. And so I remember driving home to go visit my parents, feeling all light that my debt was gonna be removed. And we all gathered together in the family room, ready to go to her birthday dinner. And then my dad comes home. He walks in the door and he says, did you hear? And I said, hear what? And he said, Dr. Tyndall died.
The former USC gynecologist facing sex abuse charges, George Tyndall, has died. The LA Times reporting that the 76-year-old was found dead in his Los Angeles home. Tyndall was charged with 27 felonies involving 16 patients. Several of the counts involved him allegedly having sex with an unconscious person. He was set to go on trial next year with scores of alleged victims ready to testify against him. One of them telling the Times she is not happy that he died. She wanted him to be convicted.
And I was completely frozen. My abuser was dead. I finally touched my lawsuit money, and the exact day it hit my bank account, he died. And he got to die peacefully in his home. He never went to jail. He never got convicted of his crimes. He got away with it. He got away with all of it. And I remember being very stoic in front of my family. I know I cry a lot on my YouTube channels a lot, but it kind of feels like I'm just talking into a void sometimes. Like it's a diary that I let strangers on the internet read. I don't often let people see me cry in person. And so I remember holding it together. We went to my mom's birthday dinner. I get back trying to act like everything's okay. And it wasn't until I got into my car to start driving home that it all really started hitting me. And I remember I had to pull over on the side of the freeway to catch my breath because I was crying so hard that I started hyperventilating. And I was now a danger to other vehicles on the freeway. And all I kept thinking was, wow, the day I used my money, the day I feel like I finally conquered my fears, he died. And I killed him. I killed him. And I know that should sound like a victory, like, woohoo, you killed your abuser, like you did it, congrats, you can sleep peacefully at night. But again, he died without ever having to face consequences. And so many other women don't get to, I don't know. I can't really articulate how I was feeling at that time and why I felt so much responsibility. I've since gone to a lot of therapy for it, so stay tuned on that. But at this time, all I kept thinking was, he died because I touched the money. I killed him. I can't explain the weight of this. Some would say coincidence, but I felt like it was the curse of my trauma reignited. It feels like the universe reached into my chest and pressed on a bruise I'd been trying to ignore. The money was finally going to be my justice. Instead, it feels like it came with strings I can't untangle. Was this cosmic punishment for trying to move forward? A cruel reminder that his shadow still looms over every decision I make? I keep telling myself it's just a coincidence, that his death had nothing to do with me. But deep down, I can't shake the feeling that I shouldn't have ever touched that money, because all it did was resurface the pain I've worked so hard to bury. And so naturally, I was like, all right, I was right the first time. We're not supposed to touch this money because it only brings bad things. So I was content with letting it go untouched for however much longer it took. But in return, it became a bank account that would stay haunting me forever. And so after that, I was totally fine. I just tried to bury the trauma deep within my brain and live my life in spite of it. And I really just tried to erase it completely from my mind.
What do we do with that information?
What do you do with any information? You just stuff it deep down inside and keep an eye on it.
You keep it.
I just felt like I was built different and that I could heal on my own and not let the trauma impact my life at all. And the haters said I couldn't do it. And honestly, the haters were right. Good call, because that was a bad idea. And so I stopped really trying. My views got lower, so I just ghosted the internet completely. I gave up on all of my hopes and dreams. I started partying and doing drugs just to find any ounce of serotonin. And then I swung the other way, where I just started isolating myself in my apartment and really just letting myself rot away. I let my laundry go unfolded, my dishes go uncleaned, and I really just indulged in the depression.
Welcome to the 10-minute power hour. I'm Danny. I don't want to do this.
My depression has been so bad this week that I haven't been able to do dishes, and so I just ate breakfast with a charcuterie board fork.
And interestingly enough, I completely stopped journaling, which is very unlike me because I'm always journaling in some type of format. And you know, friends and family, they'd call and be like, hey, we haven't heard from you, like come hang out. And I'd text them back a week later being like, oh, sorry, I was at home deteriorating, So things were not great. Now I'm fast forwarding to the summer of 2024, picking up where we left off in my hypervigilant video. So if you haven't checked out that video, I recommend catching up on the whole series because it'll be worth it. But just as a refresher, during this time, I had discovered this secret hypervigilant channel of thoughts in my brain that I had no idea was even happening. I discovered these weird automatic habits that I would do just to safeguard my environment. And once I took notice of them and started listening to that channel, I could not turn it off. And I started getting more and more freaked out. Like, is this the shadow in my brains? Is this the hidden darkness I've been trying to discover for all of these years? Did my brain see the slippery slope of coping mechanisms and grab a fucking sled? I don't know. Anyway, I was still closing my curtains, changing my clothes, turning the lights on and off, washing my hands. And then I started noticing how often I was just cleaning and organizing, how I'd walk around my apartment like I was hypnotized and be shuffling things around on my shelves to make sure my apartment looked like it was on display. I'd be reorganizing cabinets and cleaning, and then I'd enter a new room, start a new task, and make a new mess and have to start completely over. And the spooky part is that I would notice what I'm doing and try to backtrack on my thoughts because I never remembered thinking any of those thoughts. I never remembered telling my body to do any of those actions. But they all felt like my thoughts, you know? They all felt like things I would do. And, you know, it made me reflect on, well, I've kind of always been aware of this stuff, but maybe not to this extent. But I went back through my tweets, and I have tweets about getting into these weird cleaning and organizing modes that I couldn't get myself to snap out of. I have memes saved on my phone of how much I loved washing my hands and how I was doing it so often that it was almost laughable. And even in my journal entries, I could see how I knew my brain was leaving me. I think I have thoughts within my thoughts. My brain cascades from one story to another, and my mind becomes more real than the present. There's something fiction about the way my reality is going. And again, it felt like my brain was going so fast, like 1,000,000 miles an hour. But my actions were completely in slow motion. And 8 hours later, I'd finally use my eyes and become present and realize I spent the whole night doing everything and nothing. I was living life like a Sims character being micromanaged by a player that hated me. And I started getting scared. I started having thoughts like, what is happening to me? Are these voices that I'm hearing? Am I having a psychotic breakdown? Is this schizophrenia taking over my life? I felt completely out of control of my thoughts and my actions, and I'd go into my bathroom and look at myself in the mirror and go, hey babe, are you okay? because I get the vibe that you are at your wit's end. And so as each day got more and more concerning, I started realizing that this was a dire situation. This was rock bottom, but also this is what my lawsuit money should be used for. And so in that moment, I was finally ready to get some help. So I started doing my research of where to go to get help for something like this. Now, it was actually perfect timing, like the stars aligned, because my hosting gig, the talk show that I talk about, we actually decided to take a summer break and that we'd have 2 months off. And so I really thought, okay, this is perfect timing. All the stars are aligning and telling me use this next 2 months to really focus on your mental health. Now, because I had this little lump sum sitting in my bank account, I really thought, you know what? I want to treat myself to a nice little wellness resort, you know? Like, I watch a lot of interventions, so I see places where they go and they have horses in the stables and a yoga studio, and there's a cliffside beach with like a sound bather there, you know, like something real nice like that. But it turns out places like those, especially in LA, I would have to sell both of my kidneys in order to afford the down payment. So it turns out that was actually out of the question. Now, mind you, I guess this might be important. I have health insurance, but I have catastrophic health insurance, like the one you get when you're legally required to get health insurance. So basically, if I break my arm, don't call an ambulance, okay? I will splint that shit myself and start a Tylenol routine, okay? I'm not paying out of pocket for that. So it was not gonna be an option to use my health insurance anywhere. So I would be paying full price to wherever I chose. But in my research, I started coming across trauma treatment centers that were more geared towards survivors of PTSD. And that really resonated with me as opposed to a mental health facility. And so I found this one trauma treatment center right here in SoCal that really fit the bill of everything that I was looking for. And it turns out it's one of the best trauma treatment centers in the country. But what I really liked about this place was that they had both a PHP and an IOP program. So PHP is a partial hospitalization program where essentially for 5 days a week, you do about 4 to 6 hours of therapy every day, but you live in their residence program. So basically you're on site doing your therapy and it's like a summer camp of therapy. It's a terrible way to describe it, but you live there. But they also had an IOP, which is an intensive outpatient program. So for 3 to 5 days a week, you do 3 to 5 hours of therapy every day, but then you get to drive home and live in your own space, and you don't actually have to live there in their residence. And because their residence didn't have a horse stable or a yoga studio, they did have a pool though, but I just decided, you know what, that makes sense for me since I'm within driving distance. I don't need to live there. I can have the luxury of coming home to my apartment every night. So I called for a quote for a month of IOP, and it was well within my range. And they told me the next steps would be to schedule a consultation and an evaluation, because even though you might think you have PTSD, you know, it's got to be like a mutual fit, because they then create a tailored program and recommendation for you. And so they just want to make sure that they have all of the right resources and facilities tailored to what you might need in your recovery program. And I said, cool, that sounds good to me. And so I scheduled my evaluation. When I hung up the phone, I then drove to my work and I put in my 2 weeks notice and I quit my ice cream scooping job. My hosting gig was on a break, but I turned my Slack onto Do Not Disturb. I then logged out of all of my social media apps and uninstalled them from my phone. I called up my friends and family and I said, hey guys, I am going off the grid for the next month. I then drove to the store, I bought a new journal, and I labeled it therapy. And in that moment, I realized, okay, I'm finally getting help for my shadow brains. So that concludes all of the backstory of my therapy program, all the nitty-gritty details that will be important, because coming up next is my therapy program experience, as well as some of those life-changing diagnoses that I received. Now, I wanted to take a minute to thank you all so much for all of your support on my last video. It was obviously one of the most difficult videos to ever make, but just your undying support, love, encouragement, all of your comments and messages, it really does make it all worth it. And I can't thank you guys enough for all of your support. Unfortunately, that video did get demonetized, which I was not surprised by, but I'm also hoping this video doesn't get demonetized. But either way, it would really, really, really help me out if you like this video, if you leave just a quick comment, even if it's a couple of hearts, to help me get back into the good graces of YouTube, because I'm hoping that doesn't affect my views. I also wanted to give a special shout out to some subscribers. So I haven't been on YouTube in about 10 months, and during my time gone, I guess YouTube Analytics came out with some cool new features, and it tells you some of your top subscribers. So special shout out first to Sweaters in Harmony. You have the most comments on my channel, which means everything. I can't continue on if I don't get comments, if I don't hear back from you guys, and I so appreciate always leaving a comment and really sharing your support. It means the world. Sam Coleman, Sammy, I've known you since the beginning, and you don't know how special it is to me to have your support since I was starting YouTube videos back in my old sublet. So thank you for being here and for your continued support. Kathy, you were always in my comments. I feel like I know you personally because of how open you are with sharing your own experiences and commiserating, and it truly means a lot and motivates me to really create that dialogue with my community, and I couldn't do it without you, Kathy. And of course, Con, we've become internet friends beyond YouTube after this, just because of how well we've got to know each other in the comments and on social media. And you are also another top commenter, and you have no idea how important that is, how much it means to me just to know I have your undying love and support. And I've just loved seeing you grow in your own life journey. So thank you to some of those subscribers. You guys are in the top and forever in my heart, so I appreciate it. But with that being said, I will see you guys in the next episodes where we get into the nitty-gritty of my crazy therapy experience and some of those life-changing diagnoses. So I will see you guys then. Toodles!